found a couple of typos on there. Good evening. I'd like to call the December 2nd, 2025 regular Planning Commission meeting to order. Please note this meeting is being hosted through live stream on the city website and by teleconference via Zoom. I want to remind the planning commissioners to have their microphones turned on and positioned so the audience can hear. Director Monique, may we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Worth,
Here.
Commissioner Viramontes,
Here.
Commissioner Hill is absent with notice. Commissioner Barahona,
Here.
Chair Beamsterfer,
Here. Commissioner Viramontes, could we do invocation flag salute, please?
Yeah, invocation first. Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance as we gather to make decisions in our community. Grant us clarity, wisdom, and fairness in all discussions. Help us work together with respect and purpose for the good of all residents. Amen. Pledge allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we get a report from staff on item 4A?
Yes. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. I am Jordan Walton, Associate Planner and Planning Commission Secretary, and I'll provide tonight's brief report of the selection of a Chair and Vice Chair for 2026. Each year, a Chair and Vice Chair are selected to serve in a one-year term at the first Planning Commission meeting in December. For the selection of a Chair, it would be appropriate for Chair Beamsterfer to ask for nominations and the Commission to entertain a motion and select a chair. Following the vote, a similar nomination process should ensue for the vice chair, followed by a motion, a second, and roll call vote. Following the conclusion of the votes, the chair may call a brief recess for the appointed chair and vice chair to take their seats and to follow staff to update the nameplates. This is the conclusion of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the chair may call for nominations for a chairperson for the commission.
Thank you, Jordan, for that. And the commission have a nomination for chair.
I nominate Jacob Beamster for chair.
Second.
And
That was a motion made by, seconded by Viramontes and made by Commissioner. Sorry.
It was, yeah, opposite. So I seconded.
Okay, so a motion made by Commissioner Viramontes, second by Commissioner Worth.
Correct.
May I have a roll call vote? Commissioner Worth,
Yes.
Commissioner Viramontes,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill. Oh, Commissioner Hill's absent. Commissioner Barahona,
Yes.
and Chair Beamsterfer.
yes.
That motion passes 4-0.
And now we'll be moving on to selecting nomination for vice chair. And if I can maybe nominate Commissioner Worth just for being seasoned as a commissioner, unless somebody else has.
I second that motion.
A motion made by Chair Beamsterfer and seconded by Commissioner Viramontes. Yep. Oh, may I have a roll call vote, please? Commissioner Worth,
Aye.
Commissioner Viramontes,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill is absent, Commissioner Barahona,
Yes.
and Chair Beamsterfer.
Yes. And with that, we're going to go ahead and entertain a recess to allow some seat changing here. Or you can sit in Dana's seat if you want and switch your seat. Right next to Dana's seat. And with that, we're going to go ahead and resume the meeting. Agenda 5A is a public comment period for items not on the agenda. Are there any members present that would like to comment on an item not on the agenda?
Yes, Chair. We received public comment for Judith McPherson with Matt McPherson donating his time to Judith McPherson.
You can approach the podium.
Thank you, Commission, and congratulations, Chairman Beamsdorfer and Vice Chairman John Worth. I'm here tonight to place some comments on the public record regarding application of municipal code. As a citizen and as a property owner, we expect that municipal code, when adopted as law, local law, is followed diligently and enforced evenly. A few years back, and I think Mr. Papp can might remember this. A few years back, one of our tenants attempted to change the usage of the property and building that we had leased to their company. An unsavory, unethical staff member of the planning department accepted a conditional use permit amendment application from our tenant to change the usage. The property owner, my husband, the general partner of the partnership at that time, was never asked permission nor notified. I found out about this change to the conditional use permit on the last day in which I could legally file an appeal. The unsavory and unethical staff member refused to, when I went to City Hall, refused to show me the file because I knew that a conditional use permit required many, many steps in the algorithm. And one of those was a notarized property owner consent affidavit, of which I knew there was none, because my husband had never been asked permission for this change of usage. And of course, he hadn't enacted a notarized property owner's consent affidavit. So when I showed up to City Hall and I asked for that, I was refused. And thankfully, later on in the afternoon, when I reappeared to file the appeal, which was over $100 to appeal this unlawful decision, I, for the first time, met Carol Kendrick, who, as I filed the appeal, I asked her, because the other staff member had gone home, I asked her if I could see the file, or if she could, she told me no. She said, I'm not going to just show it to you, I'm going to run a copy of it, it's right here. The copy of the application. And in that application was a Xerox copy of a 3 or 4 year old notarized property owner's consent affidavit in which our tenant wrote his name on top of the Xerox copy as property owner. Now, he had employed this staff member's son, was an employee of his at the time, and there was a lot of weird stuff going on. Anyway, after 2 hearings at the Planning Commission and thousands of dollars in attorney fees to overturn this unlawful action by the then Community Development Director, we prevailed. And it was adjudicated that with any use of a property, that it does require written consent of the property owner, because we incurred the extra insurance, thousands of dollars a month, extra fees. Now, the reason I'm placing this on the record is that there have been some recent events in which there have been uses of our property without our consent. And I just don't want to go down that road again. It's a very simple concept that use of a property requires the consent of the property owner and in the manner in which it's given. Now, some businesses think that, it's one thing to go to City Hall and in the matrix of usage, that a usage may be permissible by the municipal code. But to be permissible, there still has to be the permit with the city that allows that. And that permit cannot be issued without the initiation and the written consent of the property owner. That's in our Constitution, basically. That's what I wanted to place on the record. It seems to be rearing its head again. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next public comment?
There are no further public comments.
Okay. Any e-comments?
There are no members of the public requesting to speak online.
Okay, thank you very much, Jordan. And we will now move on to the approval of the minutes. Does the commission have any discussion or concerns of the approval of the minutes? Otherwise, can I entertain a motion?
I reviewed them, they look good. I motion to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting November 18th, 2025.
I second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Viramontes, seconded by Commissioner Barahona. I'll have a roll call vote, please. Commissioner Worth,
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Viramontes,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill is absent, Commissioner Barahona,
Yes.
and Chair Beamsdorfer.
Yes.
That vote passes 3-0 with 1 abstain.
Thank you. Next, we have item 7A, receive and file the 2025 Planning Commission year-to-end summary of accomplishments. Are there, well, before we ask for comments from staff, we have to see it first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Emery Papp, Deputy Director of Community Development, presenting on behalf of staff. I wanted to take an opportunity today to do sort of an overview of the accomplishments of the Planning Commission for the last year. You've actually had a few different commissioners sit up there during the year, so some of you participated in some of these and some of you did not. But since January 21st of this year, the Commission has seen about 48 to 50 different items that you either approved, made recommendations on, received and filed, or made additional comment with some possible feedback to the City Council on ongoing items. So you reviewed 16 minutes, including the one from the November 18th meeting just now. 6 receive and file items, 5 discussion action items, and 18 public hearing items. So I'm going to briefly go over some of those items right now. In January, the Public Works Division reported to you a street beautification process for Sierra Dawn. You provided some comments and feedback for that. The photos you see here are for a similar project done on State Street. Most of the repairs in Sierra Dawn have been completed now, or many of them, and it looks much better. So thank you for your input. Also in January, the Astor High Point Apartments was scheduled for public hearing, but that was continued. It was a conditional use permit and variance. Again, the Astor High Point Apartments were reviewed by the Planning Commission in February. That was also continued due to some questions related to the variance and some fire access. And then the Bread of Life Church, which was occupying I think 2 tenant suites in a shopping center on East Florida Avenue. In March of 2025, you reviewed quite a few applications, including finalizing the Astor High Point Apartments and approving the conditional use permit and variance for that project. Also, the Freddy's Custard and Burger Restaurant on West Florida Avenue, the modification to a drive-through on West Florida Avenue across the street from In-N-Out Burger where Long John Silver's used to be, and also you provided some feedback regarding the general plan progress report. In April of this year, you reviewed the SB1 street improvements. Those are funded by grants. There were 4 street segments that were part of that approval. You also reviewed the and two ordinances, one for the high-quality chain link fencing in the commercial manufacturing zone, and also for the outdoor electronic display billboards. And you also received a report from the Economic Development Department regarding the commercial kitchen grant program. In May of 2025, you reviewed a modification to a site development review for an Arco gas station and mini mart on East Florida Avenue at Saboba. There was a requirement from the AQMD to relocate the gas pumps, so they had to do a modification that you reviewed and approved. And then you also received a report from the Western Riverside Council of Governments regarding economic and transportation planning issues in the region, and in particular, Hemet and San Jacinto Valley. In June, you reviewed a conditional use permit and PCN for a type 20 alcohol license at the El Centro Corner, which is the fueling station near the Auto Mall, and also received a report regarding the capital improvement program for the fiscal year. In August, there was one item that came forth, that was the Ramona Plaza tentative parcel map. That was to segment out the existing shopping center, so each building would be in its own, would be on its own lot. We're still working on that one, but it should be coming forth for approval soon. And in September, the Planning Commission reviewed and approved the Dosner Farms administrative use permit and the type 21 license for the grocery outlet. And in October, you reviewed and approved a tentative parcel map for the Freddy's and Quick Quack car wash on West Florida Avenue. In November, we had quite a few items come before you, including the McDonald's on the go, which is a relatively new concept for McDonald's. This will only be the second or third location in California. It's primarily serving the people who use their app as opposed to approaching the drive-through. You reviewed and approved an extension of time for the Latham, which is a assisted living facility on Latham Avenue near the mall. You received a report on the cannabis business permit process and the status update regarding that effort. And then lastly, the Tres Cerritos West specific plan project, which includes an amendment to the specific plan, revisions to the tentative tract map, development agreement, site development review and model home complex. And then later today, this evening, you'll be receiving a report regarding a proposed water and sewer rate structure increase. And I tried to throw together some statistics for you, but I wasn't able to get as many as I wanted to. I did have some things here to note. You've met 16 times out of 24 occurrences this year. You spent a total time in Planning Commission meetings officially on the clock of 18 hours, 2 minutes, and 41 seconds, with the shortest meeting time being 40 minutes and 32 seconds, and the longest meeting time being 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 57 seconds, with an average meeting time of 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 10.73 seconds. So we certainly appreciate your time and dedication in reviewing the agenda packets, going out and doing site visits, spending your time away from families to be here at these meetings. Besides the work that you've obviously done here at these meetings, you've spent countless hours in joint sessions with the City Council, in ad hoc committee assignments, attendance at trainings and conferences, reviewing the agenda materials, and site visits. You've been out to many of the sites for the public hearings that you've reviewed. Up and coming in 2026, we're going to keep you busy. We already have a host of items that'll be coming forth soon. Some of these items include the Simpson Elevate Modernization Plan, the Valle de los Tres Cerritos tentative track map off of Warren Road near Stony Mountain, the Weston Park redesign, Costin Square, which is at the southeast corner of Stetson and Costin. The RTA Wentworth facility, they have a grant, RTA has a grant to improve their facility there. They have to be up and running by July 1st in order to receive those grant monies. So that will be coming forth to you very soon. Also, the pro-housing designation program, sorry, this is really small. We're working on bringing that forth. It's an effort that needs to go in tandem with several other grant efforts we have going on. So we'll be bringing that forth soon. A general plan reporting program, and finally, multiple municipal code amendments and zoning text amendments. We have a dry erase board, makeshift dry erase board in our office that at last count had about 35 items on there that we need to get to. So we're gonna be bringing those to you in bits and pieces throughout the year. So thank you for a great 2025. You guys have been wonderful to work with. We really appreciate your feedback. The City Council appreciates your feedback and recommendations to them as well. And just want to throw a couple of quick facts out to you. In terms of the number of residential units that have gone through your hands and eyes over the last year, you have either recommended, approved, or you've either approved or recommended for approval a total of 608 dwelling units. That includes 228 for-rent apartments at the Astor High Point site, 111 assisted living units at the Latham, that was an extension of time, and then 269 for sale single-family homes in the Tres Cerritos West specific plan area. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, and we're looking forward to next year. Does the commission have any comments or questions for the presentation?
I just have one question. I know that, Emery, you've been around the planning commission, I think on the planning commission as well. Would you say this was a pretty successful year from a planning commission standpoint?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys have seen some pretty weighty projects. Next year, you're going to, so we've broken you in. Next year, you're going to see some very weighty issues and projects coming before you. There's a multitude of industrial projects that have been backlogged. I can't comment on the timing of any of those right now, but many of those will be coming forth during the next year. We have multiple residential projects. We have a lot of commercial projects. If I would have had an opportunity to throw some statistics together, just in terms of the number of residential units that we have in the pipeline right now, we're looking in the thousands.
Nice. That's cool. That's good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner
I don't
Barahona?
have any comments, thank you.
Vice Chair Word?
Yeah, thank you for that report, year by the numbers, so to speak. I guess just a couple comments. A few years back when the Planning Commission changed to assume the Parks Commission, the Infrastructure Commission, other commissions, so that this is kind of like the catch-all for all the prior commissions. There's kind of two general points. One is look forward to all of the things that were stated from this last year were all really specific to the Planning Commission function. But as far as kind of opening up, bringing back the elements with the Infrastructure Commission, elements with Parks, making sure that we have, which we appreciate Noah being here for this, and oftentimes we do have representation from other departments. But if the Planning Commission is going to be the only access prior besides City Council, we want to make sure we're getting a good representation from the city, and that we from city staff, and that we are addressing the intents and purposes of those other commissions. And then the only other thing is just, I just want to reinforce, appreciate the opportunity to be on the ad hoc committee for the facade improvement program. I think that those types of opportunities for the commissioners to get engaged with staff, work with them outside of just the public hearing, get out in the field, see what's going on, meet our our residents and businesses. Those types of interactions, I think, are very valuable to provide maybe some context and purpose for what the commission is intended to do. So I look forward to more of that. But I'm surprised that we have it down to the 0.73 of a minute in terms of average time. That's pretty impressive. So, but thank you for that report, Emery.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Deputy Director. I do have a couple questions, though. Out of 24 meetings, 8 were canceled for the year, which is 33%. And I think, not that we can fill every meeting sometime, but I think it's really valuable to use some of that canceled meetings for possible maybe some training, maybe some insight for any new upcoming developments, or just we do have some newer commissioners, and that's a good time to utilize that opportunity on those canceled meetings. Joint sessions, I think we should have at least one a year. I mean, this year, the only one we had was with the Historical Hemet Theater, which is exciting and it's fun to see what's coming, but I think there are more important things to talk about on a joint session with council and planning commission together. And it'd be nice to see a little bit more joint session meetings with the two panels. Just a quick question on the Freddy's Restaurant. What's the status on that? Is it in development or?
They are in plan check.
Okay.
From my last review of the plans, they are close to getting their building permits issued. So I would expect to see construction in the first quarter of next year.
Ooh, exciting. Okay, good. Let's see here. The AMPM Saboba, that was just an extension of time, correct? Was that, or are they in the plan check?
I'm sorry, which
The
project?
AMPM on Saboba in Florida.
That was a
I think it's
modification of the site development review. There was an issue with the AQMD and the proximity of the fuel pumps to residences. So the fuel pumps needed to be relocated, which caused the need for a modest redesign of the site.
Because that church across the street, or the school, that was across the street, I remember.
Yes.
Okay. And just one little other thing is, we started here in the library in November of 2024. Do we have any end date, sunset date when we can go back into chambers?
I do not, but we will certainly look into that and provide a report back to you at our next meeting. I can say that the parking lot surrounding the police station parking lot, the fencing has come down.
It's gone,
The
yeah.
Security fencing has come down, so I don't expect it to take too much longer. I think they're still having some, they're still doing some work internally on the electrical systems.
All right, with that, we'll just go ahead and,
Perhaps our Director of Engineering might have an update on that.
I don't know if you want to chime in on that, Director Noah? We're excited to get in that new chamber.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a set date or anything yet. The actual tenant improvements upstairs and a few things downstairs is wrapping up. They've been given a final punch list. However, the council chambers technology upgrade is just starting. And so I'm not sure exactly how long that project's going to take. That is kind of being overseen by IT. So that's the update that I have for you.
Can't wait, so I can hear better. All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and receive and file the end of the year summary of the accomplishments. We will move on to discussion. Do I need to gavel that, receive and file, or just say receive and file? Just receive and file, okay. And now we're going to move on to discussion item 8A, the water and sewage rate studies. Can we get a report from Director Noah? Are you going to do that?
I'm going to get it started off here. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners and colleagues. Noah Rao, Public Works Director. So this evening, you do get to put on your Infrastructure Commissioner hats. You'll be receiving a presentation of the findings of the city's water and sewer rate study, which evaluates the current utility revenues, projected system needs, capital improvement requirements, and recommended rate adjustments to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the system. So to walk you through the methodology, key assumptions, and proposed rate structure, I would like to introduce you to Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services. Chris and his team have been working closely with city staff over the past several months to analyze system demands, operational costs, and infrastructure needs. And we'll provide an overview of the study as well as respond to any questions you may have. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services.
Thank you, Noah. Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the Commission. I'm Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services, and I'm going to walk through an overview of the process that we went through, talk about some of the ideas and considerations that we had going into the study, take a look at how things were before, as a before picture, describe what we've done, and then look at an after picture, and then talk about the next steps that we'll be taking with the City Council beginning next week. So when we set out on this process, working with Noah and the staff, we established a number of goals to kind of guide the work as we went through. And the primary goal being to evaluate the financial health of the water and sewer utilities, their ability to meet all their financial obligations, have stable revenue for the next 5 years, based on a 5-year financial plan that we developed. We want to ensure that we have funding for operations, maintenance, and near to your heart, capital projects. We want to also ensure that there are adequate capital reserves held for emergencies and to manage cash flow fluctuations and things like that. And then ultimately make recommendations for any adjustments to rates that are based on the cost of service, which is required under California Proposition 218. In addition to ensuring compliance with the cost of service components of Prop 218, we also need to make sure that we adhere to the procedural requirements, which I'll talk a little bit about. It means you have to conduct a public hearing and send out a notice, and then I'll describe that in a little bit more detail. So some key drivers and considerations that we discovered and discussed as we set out upon this work. As with just about everything else in our everyday lives, the cost of operating utilities are increasing, and things like equipment, supplies, power, chemicals, all of the things that you can think of that are required to operate the utilities. And the cost of funding ongoing rehabilitation and repair of system components as they age, and replacing aging components with new components, and maintaining all of that critical infrastructure, those costs are going up as well, and that's important to maintain all of that to continue providing quality service to your customers and residents. One thought that we wanted to remind everybody is that you cannot have a low-income discount rate within the structure of the rates. That violates the requirements of Proposition 218. If there is going to be a low-income rate, it has to be funded from some outside source, whether that be through the general fund or some unobligated and unrestricted source of revenue. Just a thought to have in mind, because that question does frequently come up. And then one thing that certainly had an impact on the recommendations was that the last rate adjustment for both utilities was about 6 years ago. So as those costs have continued to go up each year, the rates have remained the same. And so as you might guess, that gap between the money you're bringing in and the money you're spending gradually grows a little bit wider. So talk about the methodology, kind of the process that we went through. So the rate study methodology or approach process is really built around answering 3 fundamental questions. One, how much revenue do we need? How much revenue is needed to operate the 2 utilities? Who is incurring the cost, meaning which customers or which types of customers are causing the utility to incur costs? And what do the rates need to be to generate the revenue that's required? So to figure out how much revenue is needed, we conduct a revenue sufficiency analysis, which is pretty much what it sounds like. How much revenue is going to be sufficient to meet all the financial obligations, and we use that as the basis to develop a 5-year financial plan. To look at who's incurring the cost, we conduct a cost of service analysis where we allocate those costs out functionally to each group of customers, so that we can know which groups of customers are causing those costs. And then finally, based on that analysis, we develop the rates that'll generate the revenue needed. And the outcome, a desired outcome of that is to ensure that the rates that we recommend, the proposed rates, meet that cost of service requirement as required by Prop 218, and that they comply with the 218 procedural requirements as well. So really the beginning and kind of the core of the process is that revenue sufficiency analysis I described. And so we take a look through a number of steps in those blue boxes, and make a determination of how much revenue could be generated with the rates if we didn't change anything, how much revenue can be generated under existing rates. And then in the bottom green boxes, we take a look at how much revenue is actually needed, and we compare those two. And if there's a difference between how much revenue we could get out of the existing rates and what we need going forward, then we recommend changes, and that's what we did. So those revenue requirements are things like the operating and maintenance expenses. You don't have any debt, but it normally would include repayment of debt, paying for capital projects, and maintaining reserves so that cash flow management and emergencies can be accounted for. So here's what the kind of the before picture looks like. Across the top there, you see some dark blue bars and light blue bars. The dark blue bars representing the revenue, and the light blue bars the expenditures. And you see in the first 3 years, things are fine. The dark blue bars are higher than the light blue bars. Declining, that black line representing your net result each year is declining just ever so slightly. And you'll notice a big change in year 4. That's because the city has historically been selling water credits, and that process, we're not sure yet whether that will continue. I don't know if you want to say any more about that now, but we assumed that it wouldn't, just for conservative sake. So in year 4, you see that revenue, that dark blue bar, drop down fairly significantly. Now it's less than the expenditures. And so that was one thing that really influenced the recommendations and the results of the analysis there. And then in the bottom left, you see the number of days held in reserve. That's cash in reserve. You see the dark black line indicates the goal, and that's 180 days. We want to try and maintain 6 months worth of your operating costs in reserve. And you see we start out just below that, and then as capital project spending takes place over the 5 years, and again, this is without any changes. This is as if we didn't change the rates. Those dark blue bars get smaller and smaller, meaning that cash balance in reserve is dwindling. By year 4, it's negative, and then gets worse in year 5. And really, that the primary function of that, there's about $12 million collectively over the next 5 years being spent on infrastructure projects. And so without any change in rates, that capital spending will drain that reserve and result in a negative balance. For the sewer utility, the picture is a little bit better. You see, again, the dark blue bars and the light blue bars. And for the first 3 years, results are positive, and then they slip just barely negative in years 4 and 5. And again, similar to the water, in the bottom left, you see the cash reserves gradually being spent down. There's about $10 million in sewer projects over the next 5 years, and so those dark blue bars declining each of those years represents capital spending. And here's a snapshot of the capital projects for the next 5 years. First, for the water utility, you see the big ticket items, and the majority being water main replacement projects, and that's pretty common. We see that in pretty much every city we work with. Hemet, like a lot of cities, has pipes in the ground that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and so as time goes by, those degrade, and those need to be replaced and modernized, and so that's what a lot of those projects are you see over the next 5 years. And a similar list for the sewer utility. Got five different sewer line replacement projects there. And again, as I mentioned, about $10 million worth of infrastructure projects over the next 5 years. So let's take a look at so based on that, clearly there needs to be some adjustment in the rates to generate the additional revenue needed to pay for those capital projects and pay for the increased costs of operating and maintenance. And maintaining cash reserves. So we'll take a look at the 5-year monthly rates, what a typical monthly bill is going to look like for a customer that uses about 800 cubic feet of water per month, and in our analysis, that was the average customer in Hemet. We'll take a look at what the monthly combined water and sewer bill looks like at different levels of usage, and then what the comparison, or what the bills look like in comparison with some of the neighboring utilities that we examined. And then we'll come back and revisit those graphs that showed the operating results over the next 5 years with the recommendations incorporated. So I won't read this whole table, but there's one thing I do want to point out. So this table represents the water rates, and the large group at the top is the fixed charge, starting with the 5/8 inch meter, which is your typical residential meter, all the way up to an 8-inch meter, and you see those costs gradually get higher and higher and higher as the meter size increases. That's typical with all water utility rates. Yes, sir.
Can I pause just real quick? A billing unit is, how much is a billing unit in terms of volume of water?
100 cubic feet, which is 748 gallons.
So
1 unit is 100 cubic feet.
Usage is 500,000 gallons per month? Because it said 800 billing units is the average.
I'm sorry, it's 100. 100 units. 100 cubic feet is a unit, so it's 8 units of water.
7.48.
So 740.
I apologize. I got caught on that. 800 billing units per month is the average
800 cubic feet per month of water is the average use.
800 cubic feet,
Right.
okay. So
Yeah.
1 billion unit is 1 cubic feet, not 100
100 cubic feet is 1 billion unit, is what's called a unit, is 100 cubic feet. So
Could
it's
you go back
8
to the
units.
last slide? Okay, so thank you, okay, so it's cubic feet, got it. Okay, thank you. But a billion unit is 700, is 100 cubic feet, 100?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So the big change in the meter charges is, you notice under the existing rates, the amount of the fixed charge increments slowly as you go from a 5/8 inch meter up to an 8-inch meter. What we did is realign as a standard throughout the industry and throughout the state and throughout the country, is realign those fixed charges to be consistent with the American Water Works Association guidelines. And what they do is they base the charge or they base each meter's charge or the ratio of each meter to the residential meter based on hydraulic flow. So they look at how much hydraulic flow can a meter accommodate. So you start with the 5/8 inch meter and increment up. And so we aligned the meter charges to be consistent with the AWWA guidelines, like I said, which is consistent throughout the country and throughout the state. So you'll notice that in the first year, that 5/8 inch meter, that typical residential meter, the charge goes down slightly, and some of the larger meters, they go up significantly. And again, we looked at this extensively and talked it through with staff. And so that results in that first year, the charge is kind of realigning a little bit. And then from there, they just increment up percentage-wise. They don't change each year. They just change in that first year as a result of the cost of service analysis. And at the bottom, you see the volumetric rate, currently at $4.79 per billing unit per 100 cubic feet. And in the second year, it didn't need to change because the reshuffle of those fixed charges generated enough additional revenue that the volumetric rate didn't need to change in the first year. And then you see in 2027, the volumetric rate goes up to $5.27 and then increments up a little bit each year after that. Sewer charges are a little bit simpler. There's no meter charge. There's just each customer pays a monthly fixed charge. And you see across the top there, all customers per sewage unit pay currently $8. That'll go up to $9.37 in the first year, and then increments a little bit less than that. So it goes up about $1.37 in the first year, but then goes up only about 50 cents in the years after that, and slightly less even after that. We're showing the EMWD charges below that. That's just for information purposes only. We're not citing EMWD's charges, but they are part of the bill that residents see. And so we wanted to include that in the tables, and it'll be included in the notices that go out so residents know exactly everything that's part of their utility bill. So what does that look like on a bill? This graphic here shows what a combined monthly bill for a resident would look like at various levels of use. And so starting at the bottom, a resident that uses 400 cubic feet of water would see about a $2.16 increase in their bill. And then you see all the way through a typical resident that uses 800 cubic feet, 1,000 cubic feet, 1,600 cubic feet, and 2,000 cubic feet. And so you can see in just about all cases the changes between $2.16 and $2.23. So not a whole lot of variation. And you see the existing bill is the blue and the proposed bill is the light blue. So that's what the first year's change will look like at different levels of use for customers. And the next graph shows what a bill will look like for that standard average customer that uses 800 cubic feet for each of the 5 years of the study period. So again, that first year it goes up $2.18, as we showed on the previous graph. The next year it goes up $10.21 because there was that major change, or the main change that needed to be made in the second year. And then you see it drops back down and the changes about $8, $9 a month in the final 3 years. And that $10 change in that second year was due to the increase in sewer in that second year. So here's a comparison of where Hemet's existing rates and the proposed rates stand in comparison to all of the neighboring utilities that we looked at. EMWD covers a lot of the area, so to find utilities in cities that have their own utilities, we had to look around and in some cases go a little farther away in Beaumont and Escondido. But you see Hemet's just about in the middle. That black line through the graph, $125.30 represents the average of all of the utilities we looked at. And so starting out, we're at $121.05. We go up to $123.23, so just below that average, which is I think, a positive thing to look at. And then back to the graphics that we looked at the beginning. Now you see for the water utility, the revenues are exceeding expenditures each of the 5 years, and that black line representing the net results stays positive. Again, slight dip in year 4 as that revenue reshuffles a little bit because the water credit sales cease. At the bottom, you see there's the cash in reserve is right at the 180-day requirement. Other than the second year, that's because there's a big $4 million capital list of capital projects in that second year. So drops down just in that 1 year and then pops right back up in the third year. For the sewer utility, similar, you see the blue, dark blue outpacing the light blue across the top all the way across, the black line staying solidly positive. And at the bottom, we're still spending down because there's excess reserves. We're still spending that down over the 5-year period, and we projected it out even to 10 years. And even just with cost of living increases over years 6 through 10, and we're not including that in the study, it's just for sort of informational purposes, the cash balance wouldn't get spent down by year 10. It's still above the goal. So we wanted to make sure, even though we're only able to implement rates for 5 years under California law, we want to make sure we're leaving you in a good position for the next rate study cycle, which will come in 5 years. Finally, want to talk a little bit about drought rates. We were also asked to look at implementing a drought rate structure, and what that is, it's a set of rates that can be implemented in periods of drought, and that is the 2018 legislation mandated that water suppliers plan for levels of drought so that they can implement drought rates in cases of emergency. There's a couple ways that they can be implemented. The city manager can make a determination based on kind of supply or system issues, things with water quality or failures of distribution lines or storage or anything like that. Or the governor or the state water board can implement drought restrictions based on drought conditions throughout the state. So the city's ordinance outlines more specifically all of the different requirements and situations in which drought rates can be implemented, and then the rates that I'm going to talk about here in a second will become part of that ordinance as well. So what a drought rate is essentially if you're mandating folks to use less water, you're selling less water, and so the volume of water is less. So on the fixed side, those costs remain the same. The fixed charges won't change. But on the volumetric side, you still need to collect the revenue to do all of the things that you need to do as a water utility. So you have to make up that revenue that you're losing by selling less water by, unfortunately, charging more for the water you sell. So what a drought rate is essentially a surcharge on top of the basic rates, which increases the rates to make up for that lost revenue that you would have from selling less water. So kind of a good news, bad news thing. The city is able to generate the revenue it needs to continue to meet the financial commitments that it has. But unfortunately, it does cause the cost of the water to go up slightly during a drought, which reflects the reduced supply and the increasing cost associated with that reduced supply. So as I mentioned, it only changes the volume rate, that per CCF or per unit of water rate. The fixed charge stays the same. It results in an increased rate per unit of water, and I'll show you the dollar amounts associated with that. And to calculate that, we looked at the revenue that is required. And then with staff, we look through various costs that would be reduced. So there are some costs that will go down as a result of drought. You're pumping less water. So the cost of water, the cost of electricity associated with pumping that water goes down a little bit. So we did factor that in as well. And again, as I mentioned, the city's ordinance number 1997 outlines more specifically all of the requirements and the procedures and policies associated with the drought rates. So this is what the drought rates look like. So in the first column there, you see the total costs associated with volumetric water use in column A there, and you see under the standard, they're about 7.6 million, and you see those costs do go down, each of the stage drought rate that we looked at, so that for stage 5, they go down to about 6.7 million. And you see in column B, the total number of billable water units that would be sold, that are projected to be sold. So under standard use, the city would sell about 1.5 million, 1.6 million units of water. Under stage 5 drought, that would be reduced all the way down to under 800,000 billable units of water. And so the rate per billable unit per CCF or per 100 cubic feet of water, that 479 is the standard volumetric rate that we talked about earlier. So you can see that rate goes gradually up through each of those 5 stages of the drought rates. And again, that's to offset the city for the lost revenue associated with selling less water. And this is what those rates look like projected out over the 5-year period. And you can see across the top there, the rates themselves, and then across the bottom, the changes for each stage based compared to the standard rates. So that wraps up the kind of the description of all the rates. The next step would be to come back next week at the city council meeting and present this same information. Allow any questions, discussion from the council. Assuming council moves forward, they will set a date for a public hearing. That public hearing would be conducted on February 10th. By December 26th, at least no later than December 26th, we would need to mail out notices to property owners and customers, informing them of the public hearing and describing the new rates to them and the reason for the rates. There's about a 4-page notice that goes out, 2 sheets, 4 pages, that goes out and describes some of the background, why the rates are being changed, the process of the rate study, and what the rates are going to look like. We'll come back on February 10th. The council will conduct that public hearing. The residents and customers will have an opportunity to submit written protests. If a majority of residents and customers, property owners and customers, I should say, submit written protests, then the council cannot move forward with adopting the new rates. If there is no majority protest, council will then have the discretion to implement the rates after their discussion and consideration. So there's 12,585 properties in the city. So you would need to have a written protest returned from 6,293 properties to represent a majority protest. So that's a pretty high threshold, probably not likely. But if you did receive that many protests, then the process would stop and it would have to come back at some later date. Assuming council moves forward and adopts the rates, they'll become effective March 1st, and then for the next 5 years with each of the increases. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions, provide any more background that might help you.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I just got a question. What type of property uses an 8-inch meter?
I'm not even sure. You may not even have any. It would
Okay.
be a large industrial.
Yeah, because they're
user.
getting like a 5x more in 5 years. Like they're gonna have to pay 5 times more with over 5 years, according to one of the graphs that I was
Over that,
looking at.
right? And
That's
because an 8-inch
nuts.
meter, it would draw a significant volume of water for an 8-inch
Gotcha.
meter. You can imagine that's, we're talking about it. I'm not. Do you know if you have any 8-inch customers?
Good afternoon, or good evening. We have I think maybe 2 or 3 8-inch meters, and they serve our large apartment complexes in town. One of them, I think, is the Echo Hills area, and the other one might be over by Echo Hills Golf Course area.
So
But we
probably
only
golf
have a few.
courses.
What's that?
More than likely golf courses.
It's not a golf course. It's not an
areas.
irrigation. It actually serves
Oh.
like an apartment complex that has, I think, 200, 300, or 400 apartments in it.
Gotcha, okay. So with that said, do you think that those apartments, let's just say those guys, would have a 5 times higher bill within 5 years compared to a regular residential home?
No, because
No.
that gets all divided up amongst however many units there are. So,
Gotcha.
well, I guess theoretically it could, because
Yeah.
their little piece of it could go up 5
Sure.
times. But yeah.
All right. And with the, so all flows on one of those, also one of those little graphs there, it said all flows rates, or the all flow rates, they're almost doubled in 5 years as well?
The flow rate.
Yeah, it just said all flow rates. It was at the bottom
no, it's
of
not
one of those
doubling.
graphs. It was like $4.79 to
Oh, yeah,
almost
so it's going,
$9
yeah, so, well, not quite double, but yeah, it's going from $4.79 to $7. Yeah.
over 5 years.
Yeah, over 5 years, correct.
Gotcha. All right, that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
I have a question. So you did show that just for the regular usage, and then there's also a drought usage plan. Will both of those be explained in the, I guess, the memo or the notice that you're gonna
Yes,
be
ma'am.
sending out to
Yeah,
public?
the notice that's gonna go out will have description of both the standard rates and the drought rates, and an explanation of when the drought rates could be implemented, only in
Okay.
a drought
When they
situation.
would be, okay.
Correct.
And then it'll have like the times maybe of when, because I know that for me, when we were like in a drought time, my bill went up and I didn't even notice it until like, it was too late, I had to pay the bill. And so I'm just wondering, will they receive notices of when that will be happening, especially like for the hotter summer months? if this
It
is
won't
going
be
to
in the
take
notice that
effect?
we're gonna send out, but it's part of the city's ordinance that, whatever the procedures are for notifying, property owners and customers of the implementation of the drought ordinance. And I think it has to be noticed through standard city, noticing, procedures, that the council would use for other events.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Word, Water Boy.
Yeah, I did kind of nerd out a little bit on this, just because it's very interesting to me. But it's a tough place to be when our business model for water is to get our customers to use less of our product while it's costing more to provide that product. So that shift from commodity to fixed is having to happen. There are kind of two areas of questions. One is in regards to where the city is at currently in terms of compliance with SB 1157 for the mandatory conservation of gallons per capita per day. And the reason I bring that up is, there could be some, as a result of some of these changes, there could be some changes in behavior, especially on the larger meters on the fixed costs. There could be some maybe requests for downsizing of meters, and so having an understanding of what of what you're paying for. If I had a 6-inch meter, but I only need 200 gallons per minute, I have purchased that capacity of that 6-inch meter, and then now I'm paying a lot more. Maybe I would come in. Would the city offer an opportunity for me to downsize that meter and say, hey, I don't need a 6-inch meter anymore. I really only need a 2-inch meter. I'd like to downsize that. Would that be an alternative?
I'm not sure I can address that.
Yeah. Sorry, Travis. It's interesting to me the way that like our policies in the water side are these rates and things sometimes are intended to kind of change behavior relative to meeting state goals and mandates, and we just have to be really careful on how that behavior changes.
Yeah, so with your question earlier on SB 1157, what we currently been doing with the urban water use efficiency reporting, it doesn't have any red flags, so we're meeting our targets, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been meeting with other agencies along with that, so we're all on the same page. As far as downsizing a meter, if somebody wants to come in and downsize a meter, we usually kind of put that back for them to kind of reevaluate their demand study on the piece that their commercial property they're doing and stuff, because we're going to kind of leave it up to the end user to tell us why they want to downsize, and then we have to send it through our process to make sure that what they do want to downsize is still going to meet building code,
Sure.
plumbing codes and stuff. So that's kind of where we're going to leave it at
Sure.
when those come about.
Yeah, I could see that, and it would be interesting. So there was a question asked on how many 8-inch meters. The illustration of the current and future rates was based on an 800 cubic foot per month average, and I'm assuming that that's all the residential, right? And so the residential accounts have the least amount of impact in terms of fixed costs changes. And it's broken down in the report based on type of use, so single family, multifamily, commercial, institutional. Is there anything that shows kind of what those projections would be based on maybe meter size, and what the quantity is? Because ultimately what it comes down to is what is going to be acceptable to council to approve. But if we're showing just the 800 cubic foot, and that looks really good, it looks like it's a very, very small amount, and it just doesn't kind of jive with the tables showing a 5 times increase. And so I'm wondering if there's maybe an opportunity just to kind of check that against, or at least to have that in your back pocket when presenting to council and presenting to the public, is how do you reconcile a 5-fold increase on fixed costs, but the illustration of the monthly bill is very, very, very small? And that's because the illustration is only using the 5/8-inch meter fixed cost as part of the bill illustration. If you were to do that same illustration for Echo Hills community on an 8-inch meter, what would that look like? And that might get a little different response from all of the the residents that live in those communities. But do we have, I'm just kind of curious, just without any requirement of accuracy, just kind of in general number of like 4-inch, 6-inch, and 8-inch meters that the city has?
We do have it. I don't have it.
I mean,
Just
I could,
kind
I
of
could
just
throw
skip.
out numbers. But
Yeah, no,
We
no,
do
I'm just,
have it. I don't have it handy
I'm
with
just
me,
kind
but
of
yeah.
curious. If you look at, we have almost 8,000 single-family accounts, 600 multifamily accounts. So I'm assuming those are going to be some of those larger ones. And then 565 commercial. Those are probably 2-inch, 1.5 inches. I'm assuming somewhere in that range. The only point I'm getting at is that the illustration of the rates is only focused on the single family of the 5/8 inch meters, and there's some others that we just might want to understand what the effect of.
Yeah, understand. I mean, we looked at those because they're, more than 90% of the
Right.
of the customers, and so we're trying to just focus on the majority to speak to the majority community. But we certainly have all that data. We have all that meter data. We know the numbers of meters, and I mean, we could possibly prepare something like that. I don't know if we can prepare it by next week, but we.
Yeah, I guess what caught my attention was that, like, if you have an apartment complex with a whole bunch of residents, and then now the property manager is coming in and going, wait a minute, and send something out to all the residents. Yeah, it's a small percentage of the total accounts. We only have 9,400 accounts, but it may represent a lot more people, and that may, so that if the property managers are seeing, well, wait a minute, that's going to affect my bill this much more, and that's going to affect everyone else's rent. It just something that caught my eye in terms of what that, because that primarily, because in your presentation it looked so docile in terms of that it's like, oh, that's no big deal, that's easy to accept. But looking at the changes in the fixed costs, so some huge increases on the larger meter sizes. Who does that represent? What is that? Who's gonna? It's not the same as what you're showing in the illustration. So, but in general, I think we're going to be getting to a point where we're going to be trying to encourage less usage and have to put more on the fixed cost anyways. So it's a tough business model to be in, but very, very interesting. I probably spent more time than I should have reading through the report, but thank you. No further questions or comments.
I think Vice Chair Ward asked a lot of the questions, but this might be more for Public Works. Well, also for you, we're doing a 5-year projection, and that 5-year projection, we're going to be in the positive with the rates going up. Are we going to be? Is this going to be every 5 years? We're looking at this type of report, and hopefully not have to increase in the next 5 years at the rate we're doing the first 5 years, or how do you see from 5 to 10 years with the rate of your projection? Are we going to have to keep increasing that rate continually, and from year 5 to year 10, or is it going to more plateau once we kind of bring in that revenue? What do you think?
Sure. So we did look at years. I mentioned we looked at years 6 through 10. I mean, it's hard to know because we don't know anything about what costs are going to look like, and we did apply escalators to all the different categories of costs. Personnel, electricity, chemicals, everything all the way through your operating budgets, through the whole 10-year period. And based on what we looked at now, it looks like there still will be increases in years 6 through 10 because costs are going to continue to go up, but they're not going to be anything close to the magnitude that we're looking at in the first year here to kind of make up for the 6 years of having no increases. They're on the range of 3.5% to 5%, depending. I think sewer one was 3.5, one was close to 5. So in that ballpark, as long as but you don't know how things can change. But assuming everything stays as is now in terms of the escalation of costs, the escalation of capital costs and capital projects, and there's no major changes that require a major project that we don't know about right now, that would be about the level of increases we'd be looking at for years 6 through 10 in the next rate study cycle.
Okay. And this is probably more for Public Works, but the next question is, when it comes to our DIF fees, I know we charge development DIF fees, and that the cost of the rates are going up due to labor, due to chemicals, due to upkeeps of wells, and all the above. That's why we have to keep increasing these rates. But on the DIF fee side of it, the development impact fees, are we planning on increasing those fees for development impact to allow, you know, not such an increase in rates in the future? Because, you know, what if the 30-year-old wells, a failure occurs suddenly, let's say an earthquake happens and a failure occurs on 2 or 3 wells? I mean, what's our contingency plan on that? What's our backup plan financially in case something like that happens, where we don't have to keep increasing the rates if something fails?
So as far as the development impact fee, we are currently doing a study so that those rates will be coming forward for adjustment in the near future. But in looking at the city's water system, we don't have a lot of growth left, and so that's not really going to affect, you know, it's not for a catastrophe, anything like that. We're going to have to get emergency funds to deal with something like that. But as far as, you know, what growth we do have, we will be updating the development impact fees as well in the near future.
Okay. And how is Saboba using, are we providing a contract with water to Saboba? And if yes or no, I mean, if yes, are we increasing their rates as well?
We don't sell water to Saboba. They have
have their
all
own.
of their own
Okay, that's just want to make
rights
sure.
to the water.
Okay.
Good rights.
Yeah.
Good rights, yes.
And I think that's it for me for questions. Maybe on the water bill, when we have that public meeting, and maybe when we get the water bill, a little insert would be nice, just so that the community can get it in that way. When they see how much their bill is, there's a little insert about a public hearing for next year. That's just, again, for the city, not necessarily for you. Any other questions for?
Just to confirm, and you touched on it, Noah, but so the cost, the CIP cost, it looked like there was nothing in there associated with expansion that would be funded by new connection fees. So that's basically saying that our system is sufficient as is, both in terms of supply from the wells and conveyance and storage, to support that any new development, or is there a carve out as part of the CIP? Like, I think
I can maybe partially answer. We did not include any projects that are strictly expansion related. You know, those would be, you know, if there were any, would be separated out and be part of an impact fee, so that would be paid for by new development. These are just, you know, rehabilitating existing facilities, you know, modernizing and upgrading existing facilities.
Which is why they're borne by the existing customers'
Correct.
rates. Yeah.
And how do we look on our water supply? Are there any concerns? Are we in the green, or are we in the orange or red, or for drought tolerant reasons? Sorry about that.
It's all right. We're good on our water supply.
good on water,
Yeah,
okay.
we have our wells. We have our other areas that we get water in from the San Jacinto Basin, so we're good.
Okay, perfect.
If you're able to get a good deal on the carryover credits, then that might make this all look really good in 5 years.
All right, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, and with that, we'll just go ahead and receive and file the report.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is item 9A, City Attorney Report. City Ms. Swari.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing to report, but we'll be providing a legislative update at the next meeting.
Okay. And item 9B is the Community Development Report. Director Monique.
Thank you, Chair. Our future agenda items include the Valle de los Tres Cerritos tentative track map 38979, Weston Park redesign, Costin Square development, the RTA Wentworth facility, and upcoming pro-housing designation program. We had discussed that about a year ago, but we're bringing that back online. We potentially will be working with WRCOG with grant funding to assist us with the pro-housing designation submittal. It's a long overdue application that we do need to complete. And that is the conclusion of our future agenda items. Actually, one more. We do have an extension of time coming forward to you in the next month. Thank you.
Okay, committee reports and future agenda items are done. And moving on to 9D, Planning Commission reports. Director Monique.
Yes, Commissioner Worth?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Viramontes?
I have nothing to report.
Commissioner Barahona?
Nothing to report at this time.
And, I apologize, Chair, Vice Chair Worth, I apologize that I misstated your name today.
Sorry.
Chair Beamsterfer?
We'll start off with a little funny true story of a Christmas story since we're in December. The Christmas tree that was too tall for Hemet in 1924. Hemet brought a very large Christmas tree to downtown holiday celebration. The tree was transported through the downtown on a wagon, and as it passed along Florida Avenue, the top of the tree caught a low-hanging telephone line, which snapped the line, causing issues with the locals until help arrived. However, the people gathered that evening and celebrated the Christmas cheer. So, a little true story of Hemet back in 100 years ago, almost. Upcoming thing, December 6th, we have our Christmas parade. It starts at 5 p.m. and it ends at the Gibble Park, Western Gibble Park. Yeah. And then also on December the 5th, going back a day, the Hemet Valley Christmas Cruise. That's being hosted by the city of Hemet, as well as Eagle Brew Coffee Crew and some other local folks. And you'll be seeing some old hot rods coming down the street. December 14th at 9 a.m. is the Tinsel 5K Triathlon. And if you're interested, you can go to hemetca.gov/ECONDEV, Economic Development. And November 20th, a little good story from out of Thanksgiving. Hemet PD, Hemet Unified School District, and Saboa Foundation donated over 1,000 turkeys to local families. So that was nice. It was nice to read that. And I believe there is a Chamber of Commerce Christmas coming up as well on the 11th or 15th, something like that. I can't remember which day it is. But I just also wanted to kind of bring up to staff something that I think we would like to see as a whole is a progress report on all the grant fundings that has been going on with the city for the last, at least these last couple of years, because I'm going to reflect on the trash enclosure. It's been going on for 2 years now. And I know there's usually sunset dates of lots of grants. So, you know, it would just be nice to hear from staff what grants were out there, who received a grant, not in detail, but, you know, John Doe received a grant, and, you know, it just so we know that the grant is going to good places and that we know it's being effective. But it would just be nice to get a progress report on all the grants that we're giving out to the community. I know there's a couple of frustrating citizens that apply for like the vandalism grants, and they submitted everything and just nothing, they didn't hear it back, or we're sorry, we were depleted our funds, and she was a little frustrated on that. So it would just be nice to see something like that. And with that, I have nothing else to report, and we're going to adjourn the city meeting to the next scheduled meeting for January 6th, 2026. So we'll see you guys next year.